No, ah!
Comedy.
Father John Misty, aka Josh Tillman, formerly the drummer for Fleet Foxes, and a singer-songwriter of his own who has released solo work under his own name, as well as the Father John Misty name. You have Fair Fun, which was actually quite a nice little folk album. Very endearing, very lush, very beautiful, and he continued this streak with I Love You Honey Bear, another album that was loved by quite a lot of people and detested by a fair few, but I thought it was quite lovely and quite hilarious too in its very sarcastic and like snarky deconstructions of modern day romance and love. Well, there you go. Pure Comedy is his album this year, and it has been described as one of the essential like wrap-ups of all the chaos that has been happening over the past year or so, and I would actually agree. Topically, this thing is very detailed, this thing is very, like, it goes in depth into a lot of the turmoil in the world globally, and even like on a personal level too, like what's been going on with him, but he manages to connect this to what's going on in the outside world from the title track, Pure Comedy, which is pretty much a manifesto of this entire album. I really do like this track, I genuinely think it's fantastic. Everything from the presentation of the song as a piano ballad, which kind of strips things down and kind of brings attention to what Father John Misty is saying, but also the fact that it kind of makes the song unsuspecting. You kind of expect it to be a very comforting song, but what Tillman is saying in his lyrics is a little more poignant, and actually, despite the fact that it's called Pure Comedy, not everything's as funny as it seems. He certainly points things out in like an absurd fashion, but as the song moves on, things just become a little more morbid.
And how's this for irony? Their idea of being free is a prison of beliefs that they never ever have to leave. Oh.
From the venom in Tillman's voice when he sings, comedy, this is only something only a madman could conceive.
Oh, comedy. Oh, it's like something that a madman would conceive.
Big statements being pulled right out of the gate. And to be honest, I never thought the lyrics on this album were that cringe-worthy. Granted, the second track starts off with the line, bedding Taylor Swift every night inside the Oculus Rift, which does sound like a very goofy line, but I always found it a really funny line considering the deadpan voice in which Tillman presents it in. Obviously, the track is intended to be absurd. It's delving into the state of entertainment today and just how far will actually go. Kind of reminds me of like a very morbid Black Mirror episode. You've got Father John Misty reflecting on the reception to his own character, his own persona, very polarizing in the public eye, on Leaving LA, a track that is set in different stages. Obviously, Father John Misty's been a very polarizing character in the public eye. He said a lot of things that will probably turn some people off. And although you always have the separate the artist from the art argument, it's pretty much undeniable at this point that Father John Misty has become the character that he has portrayed in previous albums. The character has kind of taken over him. However, in terms of lyrical highlights, I do think my favorite on here is Two Wildly Different Perspectives, which is an application of horseshoe theory, the idea that the more extreme to either side of the political spectrum you get, the similar these ideologies become. And then the final track, In 20 Years or So, is pretty much wrapping up the album and saying, despite all this chaos, despite all this turmoil, at the end of the day, all we still have is just us. Which is kind of a very touching sentiment to end the album off, considering all the deconstructions and the snarkiness that went on in the last hour and a half. This thing is over an hour and a half of slow piano ballads. Although some of them do sound beautiful, it is still slow piano ballads. Father John Misty being snarky and sarcastic and just picking apart at everything with a very pedantic pair of tweezers. So yeah, I can see why some people might be turned off. Also, my big concern for this album is how well it will age, considering that a lot of it is very set in the present, right now. It specifically names objects and materials and people and figures that are probably only going to be relevant now. Or, of course, that's just a prediction of mine, but I'm not sure if a lot of the content on this album will age particularly well come like maybe 10 years later. Beating Taylor Swift every night inside the Oculus Rift is a funny line. Will it be as funny well off into the future? I don't know, I don't think so. However, there are still observations on this album that will still probably be quite applicable, like Onto Wildly Different Perspectives, a beautifully poignant track, or A Bigger Paper Bag, which is about comfort and finding salvation in love. So if you watched my video about the 25 albums that I had loved by the mid-year point during 2017, you'll know that I did mention this album as one that I found quite endearing. However, obviously opinions change, and as things went on throughout the year, this thing kind of did slump a little bit on me. It's not bad, I just think it's okay. It's okay. It's likable. But there are some things that hold it down a little bit. The monotony of the style, and the fact that some of those lyrics are so confronting, almost to a fault. I'm giving this album a strong 6 out of 10 to a light 7 out of 10. Yeah.